Private prisons have left a trail of broken promises across Oklahoma. Now, the same company that profited from the suffering of Oklahomans is pushing to reopen facilities in Watonga and Sayre, but this time as immigration detention centers, raising serious questions about who really benefits and who's left paying the price. I'm Annie Taylor with OK Policy, and to help me dig into what's at stake here, I'm joined by the authors of a new OK Policy piece on the issue, Gabriela Ramirez-Perez and Polina Rozhkova. Thank you both for sitting down to talk to us today. So for people who may not be familiar, what is CoreCivic and what are they trying to do in Oklahoma right now?
CoreCivic is a corporation that runs private prisons and other correctional facilities across the U.S. They have been operating in Oklahoma since the late 1990s, but have since closed down their facilities in the state for a variety of reasons, such as lost contracts, understaffing, and state efforts to pass criminal justice reform. The recent surge in federal funding for immigration enforcement and President Trump's push for mass deportations, however, have created an opportunity for CoreCivic to return to Oklahoma due to the increased need for detention space. CoreCivic has stated publicly that they hope to reopen the shuttered facilities in Watonga and Sayre as immigration detention centers. Like any company with publicly traded stocks and shareholder interests to consider, CoreCivic's business model does not depend on ensuring community safety or sustained local economic development. It's just profit-driven.
And Oklahoma has dealt with CoreCivic before, so historically, how has that worked out in the past?
Since 1998, Diamondback in Watonga and North Fork in Sayre have opened and closed, reopened and closed again, and then reopened and closed. So when they are open, they've been the sites of countless violent riots, which were traumatizing and deadly to those incarcerated, and very traumatizing for the people working there. Closures have also occurred because both of these CoreCivic facilities historically housed folks from other states, so incarcerating them for states like Arizona and California. And so when those states ended their contracts, the company had no reason to keep the facilities open. In 2003, Sayre lost 225 jobs as a result of these kinds of closures and a third of its revenue. And in 2010, Watonga similarly was left with a hole in their city economy, and more than 300 corrections workers were left jobless. Additionally, CoreCivic has been known to violate the terms of their contracts. In Sayre, this came to a head in 2018 when CoreCivic failed to pay nearly $1 million in fees to the city, which led to a lawsuit that the company eventually agreed to settle.
And beyond just talking about economics, what has life looked like inside CoreCivic's facilities, both in Oklahoma and elsewhere?
So unfortunately, CoreCivic, as well as other private immigration detention facilities, have been the site of documented human rights violations, the site of riots, preventable deaths, and medical neglect. There have been reports of unsanitary and degrading conditions, such as overflowing toilets, lack of clean clothing, and sometimes people going days without access to showers. Furthermore, the people being detained in these facilities are overwhelmingly not convicted of serious crimes, and most have no criminal records at all beyond a traffic stop or an immigration-related offense.
So what's driving this push for more detention beds in Oklahoma, and who is really going to benefit?
The federal reconciliation bill passed earlier this summer allocated $170 billion for immigration and border enforcement, with $45 billion of that specifically set aside for expanding detention facilities. CoreCivic and another private prison operator, GEO Group, stand to gain billions of dollars in new revenue. Immigration detention for now serves as an intermediate step to deportation. So an increase in demand for deportations suggests an increased need for detention space. For years, officials have justified immigration detention by claiming that it's necessary or helpful for the safety of the community, and also that it ensures that immigrants appear for their legal hearings. Evidence shows that detaining immigrants actually can reduce community safety because it reduces, or it may reduce, crime reporting. And also we've seen that 80% of non-detained people still show up to their scheduled immigration hearings. Finally, and maybe most importantly, there's no evidence that detention deters migration. But even if that were to be true, eventually that would suggest that the demand for detention space would disappear.
So then why Watonga? Why Sayre? Why are these small towns being targeted? And what risks do the people who live there, what kind of risks do they face?
As CoreCivic mobilizes to meet the demand for more detention space, Watonga and Sayre have come to the forefront as possible locations for these private immigration detention centers because CoreCivic already owns facilities in these towns. Reopening a private prison as a detention center is much cheaper than having to build an entirely new facility, which makes Watonga and Sayre convenient choices for CoreCivic. In the process of reopening, towns are promised jobs, they're promised revenue. But as we detail in our article, CoreCivic's track record shows instability and closures. Reliance on prison contracts stunts economic diversification and long-term growth. And when the facilities close, as they've done many times in these towns, the people are left with economic holes and reputational damage.
And if detention is so unnecessary and harmful, as you say, what should Oklahomans and our policymakers be pushing for instead?
We should really be looking to expand proven alternatives to detention. As we mentioned earlier, over 80% of non-detained immigrants still show up to their court hearings. And then if you look at the investments made in the federal reconciliation bill, there's a ton of money allocated towards detention and incarceration, but there's no parallel investment happening to improve immigration proceedings, immigration court, judges, all the other steps actually that follow detention. So what we're doing is we're forcing people into detainment and not really doing much to address the root issues. Finally, community well-being, which I think should be at the root of what policymakers in Oklahoma are concerned with, relies on stable employment and housing. And Watonga and Sayre, we believe, deserve investment in sustainable rural development and not these quick fix job influxes that might come from these prison corporations.
And so we know that these private prisons opening as detention centers are going to be bad for community well-being. So what can Oklahomans do right now to push back against these proposals?
That's right. Reopening private prisons as immigration detention centers is a bad deal for Oklahoma. These facilities have been the site of multiple riots and risk subjecting the people there to poor conditions. Economically, it's no better. While CoreCivic may create jobs, there is no long-term investment in the towns that will allow them to build a strong economy that lasts even after CoreCivic leaves or closes their facilities. To push back against proposals to reopen facilities and to ensure transparency around the process, residents of Watonga and Sayre should attend their city council meetings and contact their local officials. The Watonga City Council meets at 6 p.m. at least once a month, with the dates posted on their website. And the Sayre City Council meets at 7 p.m. on the third Tuesday of every month. Overall, it is important to stay informed about CoreCivic's moves and share information with neighbors. Being involved makes a difference. In other states, local pushback has successfully stopped CoreCivic, and it could do so in Oklahoma as well.